What's up, my PT peeps? One Eye Bri back to talk about The Walking Dead Season 7 and do a discussion about Glenn and Abe and who would be more valuable to the group right now in their current situation. Spoiler warning, obviously, if you don't know Season 7 and you're not up to date on the show, because we're going to talk about Season 7 of The Walking Dead. Spoilers ahead. Now, Season 6 ended like this, with Season 7 starting with the conclusion of the whole lineup situation. Now, we knew stuff was coming, and we just want to talk about a hypothetical. If Abraham survived or Glenn survived, really one of them would have to survive. Not both, because that's unacceptable. I guess they could have killed someone else, but Abe and Glenn both didn't make it. But we just want to have a fun discussion and just open it up to you guys. Who do you think would be more valuable to their situation right now against Negan and the Saviors? Now, we'll make the case for each character, but we'll ultimately have our Victor, who we think would be the most valuable person for the group in Season 7 where they're at right now. And it's a shame that Glenn and Abe both were the victims. I would have liked to have seen one of them make it out alive, but the comics stayed true to where they're at in the storyline. Neither of those people are in the storyline, so they're both dead. And it was very heartbreaking to see Glenn like this and Abraham. Now, ever since the lineup became upon us in Season 6, Episode 16, we always talked about who would be the likely victims based on the storyline and where they're going to go. And we've talked to fans and subscribers and on Facebook and everything and be like, if in a hypothetical, who would be more valuable to the group and who would be a better storyline to continue? Would it be Abe or Glenn? Abe or Glenn is a good discussion to talk about. And let us know what you think in the comments, who you would like to see on the show, because both have huge fan bases. People love Glenn, people love Abe, but ultimately I would only think one of them would possibly survive unless they killed Daryl or something, or Aaron, or smaller victims like that, like Eugene or Aaron. But ultimately they killed Abe and Glenn. But who would you think? Who would you think would be the most valuable person to the group right now going forward? So let's talk about Glenn. If Maggie had Glenn by her side, she would make it back to the hilltop, because she was going there for the doctor, and Glenn would be by her side, of course. With Maggie and Glenn, Maggie would have to worry about Glenn at hilltop as well, and that changes her storyline significantly. She probably still has the baby, but Glenn being there, I don't know if Maggie will truly become the leader that she is and will become from the comics, and that they have definitely foreshadowed in the Season 7 Episode 5, and really from Season 6 and going forward. But Maggie and Glenn, to say that if they were still alive, Glenn could be an asset too, helping the hilltop, going out scavenging, doing some big things for the hilltop, because Maggie and Glenn would be staying at the hilltop because she would have to stay because of the baby. Glenn would not really help the survivors much because he would be stuck at the hilltop with Maggie and Sasha. Don't know if Sasha would go. Sasha might stay at Alexandria. Maybe she would stay at Hilltop or not. We just don't know. But Glenn and Maggie would become the power couple of Hilltop and eventually probably run things. Maybe Gregory kills Glenn. Maybe something happens with Glenn. Maybe Simon and the Saviors kill Glenn. You just don't know. But Glenn becomes an asset to the Hilltop, not so much Alexandria and the survivors anymore. I think he stays with his wife, because that's who his allegiance is, of course, and that's who he stays with and becomes there. So Hilltop becomes a little stronger. Alexandria basically remains the same. Maybe has Sasha, maybe doesn't. But Glenn's not a fighter. He's more of a scavenger and a survivor against the walkers, and the main threat would be against the Saviors and the war. So with the March to War and all that war storylines, don't know how important and valuable Glenn would actually be, because he's not the military guy, and if his back is against the wall, he would kill another human being. But he just killed people in the Savior's compound for the first time, and it was really tough for him to do that. And I know if his back was against the ropes, or Maggie's would be against the ropes, he would be able to do it, but it's just not in his nature. If Glenn was still alive, the Maggie and Glenn and Hilltop dynamic is totally changed and totally different from what it is, because Maggie would have to worry about Glenn would have to worry about Maggie and protecting them, and that might become a hindrance because Negan and Simon would know how to do it. And if Maggie was still alive and Glenn was still there, Maggie probably gets taken by Negan, as he did reference that when he was at Alexandria. If she made it, he was going to ask her to come back with him. So Glenn would probably get the bullet or bat or whatever as a sacrifice if Maggie would say no. Now let's talk about Abraham. Abraham, to me, is the clear choice to be more valuable because he's a military guy. He's an asset to the team. He would be able to lead things. He would be able to have his own army, coalition, ideas, tactics, or something to go against the Saviors, a plan. He would develop things to go with Rick and to go against the Saviors in a way that's not hindering the team and Rick's wishes, but he would also kind of do his own thing, probably set up with Rosita and Eugene, maybe even Michonne, to say, we got to step up here. Rick is confused. Rick is torn. Rick is going to worry about safety and security our entire time. Well, we can't live under Negan's rule, so they would probably step up, form their own thing, Abraham's army, just like it sounds, just like it would be when we first saw them, Rosita, Abraham, and Eugene, with Eugene finally knowing what to do a little more. Sasha would probably be with Abraham and Alexandria, so you would have two warriors, fighters, tactics, people who would be able to handle themselves and really have a good connection and be a team against the Saviors. And that would be, of course, an obvious advantage for Rick's group to have Abraham alive. But Abraham going out the way he did, he sacrificed himself in the lineup, saying that he's not going to back down from Negan, so he was taken out, unfortunately. But Abraham is clearly a big asset to the team, besides being hilarious. And I love Glenn and Abraham, but I think losing Abraham on the show is definitely hurting the show more than anybody's loss probably may ever happen or impact the show, unless like Rick or Daryl or somebody huge died like that. I could see Michonne and Abraham and Rosita or somebody teaming up to develop a plan to go against there, to have someone distract things or set up coalitions and booby traps or some kind of setup, kind of have Abraham come up with great ideas. Hopefully they buried guns in these graves, as these graves are empty. As we know, Abe, Glenn, and Maggie are at the hilltop. Abe and Glenn being buried, of course. Maggie's still alive, but being all at the hilltop. So, of course, these two will be and are extremely missed on the show. They're huge characters from when they came upon the show. For that, I would love to see either of these characters in this lineup for All Out War going against the Saviors, but unfortunately it'll never happen. Glenn, Abraham, who do you pick for more valuable? I know it's a hypothetical, they both bring value, just who do you think would be more valuable in the current situation? Like, share, subscribe to get more videos. You guys are awesome. Let us know what you think, and as always, thank you for watching.